Greetings, colleague. Mishti, welcome. And of course, our guest, we will introduce him very soon. This is our monthly applied professional and executive coaching 101 conversation show that is brought to you by COMETSA Global Online Channels. We are built on the concept called the idea. We inform and entertain, we develop and educate, we empower and support, we associate and network. That is the idea. This particular show, it is a show through which we as coaches, we enter into conversation around our profession, coaching, as it plays itself in the world, in the continent of Africa, in the continent of India, in South Africa in particular today, and of course in India and Kenya. Wow, what a wonderful connection. We are committed to building and developing coaching further. And of course, we are committed to saving our societies through coaching. It takes place on the first Tuesday of every month and is hosted by myself, Tsima. I am the founder and the CEO of COMETSA GOC International Pty Limited. It is an organization that focuses on human capital, management and leadership development consulting based out of South Africa. Thanks to technology, we are able to connect with anybody, anywhere in the world. Our main offering is coaching, mentoring, consulting, advisory, networking, but we are focused on commerce. We are here to assist clients to build their businesses, and coaching is one way of doing that. My co-host, based out of Mumbai in India, you always mention this other old name, which you say it's no longer politically correct. Explain
Bombay.
to
Bombay.
Over to you, Mishti. Introduce yourself, please, and welcome our guests, our listeners.
Thank you so much, Sam. Greetings, everyone. A very warm welcome to our show. It's always a pleasure to greet all the beautiful coaches who are tuned in today. And to introduce myself, my name is Coach Mishti Verma. I'm a Gallup Strengths coach, a gender sensitization expert, and I'm also a behavioral facilitator. I do a lot of work around leadership development, gender sensitization, women leadership, and my passion lies in using experiential tools in coaching and in learning and development, tools such as applied psychodrama, mime, expressive art therapy, allied arts, and creative visualization. I also work with an OD consulting organization called OD Alternatives as a partner. And it would be wonderful to welcome our guest today. And I may invite Coach Sam to do the honors for that.
Yes, thank you so much. It's for the first time that we venture into the rest of the continent. You, Mishti, and I, we have always said we are building the bridges between India and Africa. And here we are now. We are reaching out, and we have a wonderful guest, Dr. David Thuku. He has advised me just to call him David, and I'm happy for that. But let's honor who he is. Somebody who's driven by deep passion to cause positive impact in leadership practice across the African continent through coaching and leadership development. That opening statement on his profile just makes me want to jump and say, yeah, this is it. We want to bring coaching closer home. We want to take coaching from Africa to the rest of the world. And how befitting it is to have the current Icf Kenya chapter president, my friend David. But the first hour, as we always do, Mishti, we want to know our guest because he is a coach. He is an example of what perspective a coach brings into profession. And I have his profile here, but I want him to just take us through his journey to where he is today. And I always like going back to the childhood. You know, sometimes you see somebody at this professional level, you think they were just born like this. No, there is a story behind. And in Africa, we use story to tell our life histories. And I'm a pleasure to present to you Dr. David Thuku, the International Coaching Federation Kenya chapter current president. My friend, just take it slowly and tell us who you are, where you grew up, what made you to follow the career you followed, and what brought you to coaching. Over to you, David.
Thank you very much, Sam and Mishti, for having me here today. It is a great honor and privilege, and I don't take it for granted that Sam and Mishti have found it fitting that I come and talk to these wonderful people, coaches from across the world. So I am very happy to be taking part in this conversation. I am also excited at the choice of a topic that Sam and Mishti have chosen as we speak about today, which is spotlighting coaching in Africa with myself as the current president of ICF Kenya chapter. So that topic is a topic that is very close to my heart, Sam and Mishti and our coaches. And I'm really looking forward to engaging with it. It actually brings out three sort of distinct legs or arms which we can delve into. Coaching as a concept, Africa as a market, ICF Kenya and myself as a person. So those are three areas that obviously create a lot of excitement in me. Coaching Africa and obviously the chapter that I lead here. And as you say, I'll start from the bottom. I'll start with myself as the ICF Kenya chapter, and then we'll work our way up to Africa and coaching within the conversation. And once I introduce myself, I will speak into Africa, I'll speak into coaching as a way of landing ourselves to where we pick the conversation as we go ahead. So let me start with what Sam, you've asked me to do, which is to tell my story. And as you rightly say, Africa, we are gifted in the art of storytelling. South Africa in particular, you actually, I think, are well developed in this space. And I liked your storytelling culture there. You still have quite a bit of it still going. So my life began many years ago, now past 55 years ago, in the central part of Kenya, in a place where it was a farming community, a district called Murang'a then. Now it's a county. It's called a county, but then they were referred to as districts. And I spent my first formative years within the farming community. So I did my primary school there. And one of the things which was to influence me a lot in life was just that fact of spending my first formative years there. I must own up that despite growing up in a farming community, farming did not generate curiosity or interest in me. Actually, I worked very hard to move out away from that community because I didn't want to spend a big chunk of my life there. So when I was through with my primary education, I then left that community in my early teenage and moved closer to Nairobi, within the environs of Nairobi, to pursue my secondary education and my post-secondary university education in and around Nairobi. And I was to spend, well, the rest of my life basically then revolving around Nairobi. I went to secondary school. I thought I was going to be a scientist. I wanted to be an engineer, but here I am. I never became an engineer, but I became a banker after my university education. I joined the banking industry here in Nairobi just straight after university. And I was to spend the next almost 3 decades within that world of banking. I became a banker for 29 years. A huge chunk of those I spent within the multinational banks. And then the last 6 years I spent in a local bank. And I served in various leadership positions within those banks. I started off from the bottom as a management trainee and worked all the way to the last position where I left as a CEO in my last position. Now, as I served in these various roles, I got opportunities to work within structures, to work within systems that exposed me to the scale and magnitude of opportunities that are always available for individuals, for teams, and how different factors come to play and interface to yield different levels of results. So you'll find one team yielding success, you'll find one team yielding suboptimal levels of success. Same at individual level, you'll find some individuals achieving great levels of success, others achieving suboptimal levels of success. And I was naturally very curious as to what causes all these disparities between these levels of success. And as I got more and more exposed to the working world, because within the banks I worked across many countries in Africa, but I also got exposure beyond the boundaries of Africa. And just like I talked about opportunities and levels of success, at individual level, at company level, at team level, I started noticing the levels of success even at a national economy level. And I started getting that level of curiosity why some parts of the world get different levels of socioeconomic success than others. And that level of curiosity kept growing as I worked within the banking industry. In particular, I got quite curious about Africa and the sort of contradiction, and I'll speak to that contradiction in a short while, the contradiction between the resources and the level of performance of the African economy. So that always was at the back of my mind, especially as I worked moving from country to country, from region to region, and seeing the levels of disparity between the opportunity and the levels of success. And as I worked in the banking world, as I connected people to opportunities, I felt challenged to make my own contribution with regard to positive transformation within this continent. And there are many ways which I reflected upon. You can make contribution in very many ways. When you think about making contribution in such a scale, the first thing that comes to mind is political sort of offering. And I know we discussed some about whether what extent do we offer ourselves to do political contribution towards transformation. So political activity is one thing. Civil activism is another way that you could get involved. Getting involved within the NGO world, within the commercial world, setting up businesses and so forth. So there are very many ways that one can then get engaged within the positive transformation that this continent so deserves. But having looked at all those, I did not land at political activism. That's not my cup of tea. Neither is civil activism my cup of tea. I felt the space where I would make a difference is within using my knowledge, my skills, my experience within the professional coaching and leadership management space, which is what then I transitioned to after my close to 3 decades in banking. I then moved to the space of executive coaching and leadership development facilitation. And I do this with a bias of clientele within the African continent. and that's deliberate. So within that space, I serve on many coaching panels within Kenya, across the continent. I run my own leadership development consultancy firm, Leadership Presence Limited. I serve the coaching community, the ICF coaching community, as some indicated, as the president of ICF Kenya chapter. I do engage actively, as you will notice, as an evangelist for a positive perspective of Africa. And the reason I say that is because we have enough opportunity to see not the so very positive perspective of Africa. But when you are curious as a coach, you notice there is a whole range of positive perspective on Africa, which we need more people shining the spotlight on. So I deliberately decided to be engaging as an evangelist, because Africa herself doesn't have a voice, but it needs voices who then paint that positive perspective, so that we are not just seeing what perspective that you are given that paints Africa in a different way. So beyond that, I also do have some other God-given opportunities to serve leadership coaching as a husband, as a father, as a NANCO, and all these other social leadership opportunities that we are given for free. So that's me. And my passion is around the specific areas that Sam and Mishti decided to choose for a topic for today. Coaching, Africa, when you combine them together, they excite a lot of passion in me. Let me talk a little bit about ICF Kenya chapter.
Before you go there, David, I'm very curious to know, as you were growing in your profession, did you come across coaching? Did anyone coach you, or you came into contact with coaching when you decided to become a coach?
Very, very good question, Sam. And the way I landed into coaching was very interesting. Round about when I was celebrating my 40th birthday, I started thinking about what will I do after I leave the world of banking, because I knew I needed at some point to leave the world of banking. And I had many things in the air which I was toying with. And as I was going through that thought process, a colleague of mine in the office told me about some people who are doing a roadshow talking about executive coaching. At that point, I had not met the concept. That was around about 2009. And I went, the colleague told me, just go and listen to those people, or see what it's about and see if it interests you. And I went to the roadshow that was being done by a UK firm, the Academy of Executive Coaching. I listened to what they were saying, and they were launching a training program around that time. So I got in and I trained, and I felt that connected with me, and that is what I wanted to do. So straight away I knew this is what I want to do after banking. But that was quite a number of years before I left the world of banking. So I trained as a coach and started practicing coaching within the institutions I worked in. So I used coaching a lot as a default leadership style while I was still within the corporate space. But obviously, when circumstances needed other styles, I used them. But I used coaching a lot as a leadership style within my days within the corporate space. So I trained as a coach, and then after I left banking, then I practiced a lot internally. Then I eventually ventured out and became full-time on coaching.
Will that be, before Mishti comes in, will that be the preferred way, in your view, of actually starting to practice coaching? That is, get qualified and offer yourself inside your organization, coaching others, but also embed it within your leadership practice. And that way you are able to know if you are cut out to be a coach, or what will you say?
A good question, Sam. And I would be hesitant to prescribe a sort of a best route to coaching, because we are all in very different circumstances. We are all in very different life journeys. But one thing one observation I can make about coaching is that deep inside, there's some intuition that my sense is that you sense, can I be a coach, or is this something that is far off me? You must be somebody who is interested in causing impact. You must be somebody who is not so much self-focused, but have the capacity to be able to look at somebody else and want to see them grow and move from one level to the other. So a sense of outward looking is something that you listen to yourself and say, do I celebrate when I see other people move from one level to the other? I think it's something that gives you an indication. Then sometimes you are in a corporate space. For whatever reason, you may want to do that within your corporate space. You practice your leadership style, your coaching leadership style. But having said that, coaching then is applicable to anybody and everywhere. So you can start wherever you are, being a coach, because basically what you do, you are helping somebody discover themselves, discover the strengths that they have. You are challenging and supporting them to discover themselves. So at whatever point you are, Sam, I think you can start doing that, getting people to discover themselves and apply themselves at whatever point you are at.
That's wonderful sharing, Dr. David. And may I start by saying, Habari, Dr. David. Very
Zuri.
warm welcome.
Jambo sana.
Yes, indeed. So I've been listening to your conversation, and there are two threads that I picked up from what you spoke about, or I could even rephrase and use the word themes. Somewhere you spoke about what motivated you, or what pulled you towards helping people, was when you saw disparity, and the other aspect you spoke about is opportunities. Both are linked, but at the age of 40, when you decided that you want to be a coach now, was it somewhere coming from these two themes? And you thought that somewhere, would you be able to create a bridge to connect these two themes while you're entering into the world of coaching?
There is, yes, the opportunity, but I guess as one goes through their journey of life, there are points within which you feel some nudge or some urge to think about, when I take that bend round that part of the journey, what is next there?
Mm-hmm.
And that curiosity for me has always been there, that I want to try and figure out, when I take round that corner, what's ahead there,
Mm-hmm.
so that life, one, is not just flowing just like water running down a stream, but you are being deliberate about trying to influence what will happen round that bend. And secondly, also doing things that excite you, things that resonate with yourself, living life in a conscious way, not so much being sort of just flowing with the wind, but being very deliberate and being strategic around how you influence how life plays out. And when you have that sort of clarity around you, then it is easy to spot the opportunities as they come along, which you grab and align towards your purposefulness, towards your dreams, your aspirations. that's the way I would put it, Mishti.
Thank you, Dr. David. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I also, your story is very inspiring, that coming from a community of farmers, then moving into the banking industry and working with people at different levels. So you understand people at various levels. You understand their needs. You understand where they're coming from. So if I take the example of the iceberg principle, you don't only understand what's visible, that 10% that's visible, but you understand what's beneath the surface, the 90% that's not visible, in terms of their challenges, in terms of the needs at different employee levels. How does that help you in your leadership style and your coaching practice while integrating that with leadership?
Thanks, Mishti, and you are very right. People do what they do, driven and propelled by different reasons, different motives.
Mhm.
Some of them are motives or reasons that we can see on the surface. Those are the few. The bulk of what propels people is things below the surface, as you rightly put. And whether you are managing a team, whether you are managing yourself, whether you are managing your own children or relatives or those close to you, having that awareness helps you navigate and work with people, because there will be people who will tell you, I feel like taking a walk, but they actually feel like sitting down, and they are telling you the exact opposite of what they feel like. Now, if you take it as face value, and your colleague tells you, I'm bored with this work, I want to leave and move to the competition. And when in actual sense, what they mean is, I really would love to have a conversation with you so that you can motivate me to stay around much more. So people behave differently for different reasons, and understanding what drives the people to behave in certain ways then helps you not only manage and lead human beings, but also navigate your own way through life. So it is a fundamental thing for us as coaches, as human beings, to try and understand what motivates that person to walk towards me or to walk away from me. What motivates them to apply themselves in a work situation? What motivates them to not dispense their discretionary energy towards working in a particular job? Because if you are leading a team, there are people who will be sitting down, you think they are working, but they're just looking at you to see that you are watching them and seeing like they are working. So there are different motives that will drive different people. So understanding that then helps you not only manage the people, but also navigate yourself, as I said, in a way that you also enjoy partaking life. Because by the end of the day, life is not a rehearsal. You are not rehearsing for another life. This is it. So you have to enjoy every minute as you navigate. You understand yourself, you understand those you live with, so that you can be able to have a meaningful life yourself and those you lead.
Wow. Uh, David, coaching depends very much on the knowledge we have as we practice, but you have just hinted also that it depends on your character. Depends on, you have to have certain personalities, traits that for you to be able to be an effective coach. And that brings me to this issue of, you come into coaching with as you are, you know who you are, and your own history actually mold you. Now, what is the role of culture in all these things? As you prepare to become a good coach.
Now, culture, where we come from, the journey behind us plays a significant role in who we are. It also influences how we perceive things, how we perceive ourselves, how we perceive situations, how we perceive life. Now, coaching helps us understand ourselves, help us understand situations so that we can be able to take appropriate action towards better versions of ourselves, or to make situations better, to turn opportunities, actualize opportunities. So coaching has the skill set that one uses to coach, the various skill sets, the questioning styles, and all that. But beneath that, all those technicalities, all those nuts and bolts of coaching rest on a foundation of the individual who is the coach. Which is why it's important to listen to yourself and sense whether this coaching thing is really for me, or am I doing it because it is sort of the flavor of the season. Everybody is talking about being a coach. All my buddies, all my friends are doing coaching. Now, if the foundation of yourself is not there, however much technical competencies we equip you with, you may not necessarily turn out to be the best of coaches. So there's a foundational space. Then there's the technical competencies. And then there's the knowledge that context is different. I did say that I deliberately coach clients within the African continent. And I said it's deliberate. It's because I understand, I've taken time to understand Africa, understand the context, understand the people, understand generally how things work within. So as you are saying, when you are thinking of things beneath the surface, it's easier to see, to look at my clients and see that behavior could indicate the following. So culture and the way we see things, they're interlinked. And I said, my growing up in a farming community, my moving away from the farming community to work, to school and work around Nairobi, obviously it has an impact in who I end up being today. Now that consciousness helps me to then shape who I can become. Are there some voices from the past which could be pushing me forward or pulling me backwards? And those voices are in each one of us. There are voices that will nudge you ahead. There are voices which will pull you behind. Now, those voices need to be surfaced so that and brought, given to you so that you can deal with them. If there is a voice from the village that is telling me, I cannot be this, it needs to be dealt with so that it is counteracted by the voice that says, no, hang on, you can become anything and everything you focus on becoming. So cultural dispensation, absolutely right. It has an impact in how we navigate life.
That's wonderfully said, Dr. David. It reminds me of the concept of culture and identity. And there was a technique that I used to use to understand my clients better, where because you've also been in the farming community, you may be able to relate to the metaphor of a tree. So we would have them draw a tree, and when they're drawing the roots, we will help them track their roots. So what roots, what is their foundation? Roots could be where they're coming from in terms of culture, it could be education background, and just help them identify some of the roots. Then the trunk would be what are the beliefs they stand for, the voices in the head that you spoke about, and the fruits could be the goals and aspiration. And I realized while using this technique, it's so important to actually understand the foundation or what the grounding is of the coachee. Also, in terms of self awareness, you understand your own identity as a coach. But it's also very important to understand what the overall identity or the collective or self identity of the coachee is. So I would just want to invite some of your thoughts on is it really useful to help the coachee also understand his foundation, go from mindset to understanding and exploring his identity, of course, depending on the goals and the context.
Thank you, Mishti. my own experience, especially here in Africa, where coaching is still, you can say, still in the early stages, it helps to walk the journey of bringing the coach to the same level in as far as setting expectations is concerned, and just getting to learn to lay the foundation on which coaching is going to rest. And that's the foundation even for themselves. As you get your chemistry working, again, remembering that, and we said this when we were starting the conversation, that Africa, we don't struggle with conversation, but getting to trust each other starts with us starting to understand one another. And even for the client, it helps for them to understand themselves, where they are coming from, so that you can be able to position where they are going. So that's getting the clients to fully understand themselves from a background perspective, understand themselves, accept themselves, and then start challenging themselves to what else they could get themselves to becoming. I think for me is an important place to start, even as you lay the foundations of what it is that you want to work on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, within the cultural context, you said that you've been focusing on coaches from Africa. Uh, so, I wanted to know, within the cultural context, do you still find diversity in maybe beliefs or comfort levels, or their approaches to coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you speak about Africa, sometimes it sounds like one homogeneous community, but it's a very heterogeneous community across the continent. If you just think of language, cultural practices, we have over 2,000 languages spread across the continent. You have different levels of education. You've got different levels of exposure. And that will obviously translate even to the clients themselves that you deal with. But there are some sort of commonalities that you'll find within the economies across Africa. But that disparity is there. Some people will be a few miles ahead, others will be in between, others will be, the journey to where you start will be different for different people. But you are absolutely right. The scope of difference is huge. Even within the same country, for example, the North, the South, there's a lot of difference in terms of even cultural dispensations, languages, as I've said. But even within one country, if you're in Malawi, the one side is not the same as the other side. Or here in Kenya, one side, there are differences in the way cultures play out and how they impact the way we behave. But there's at least some commonalities that are basic minimum.
I wanted to come back on this issue of diversity as in the case of a continent, because I think that's quite very, very important. I have worked across the continent as well, and certainly the awareness of the role culture plays in our interaction with each other. It's very, very important. Certainly in coaching, absolutely fundamental. But before we go there, can we give you the opportunity now to introduce ICF Kenya in the context of what we are talking about now? How it came about and why it's so important as coaches to belong to federations like ICF, and what type of programs you will have in a country like Kenya. I'm sure it's quite unique to Kenya, although there are some commonalities as ICF has globally.
Sure. Let me start by saying that ICF Kenya chapter is one amongst many chapters of the International Coaching Federation across the world. It's over 140 plus chapters, so we're just one of those. in an organization that is that has many members, close to 50,000 members globally. Now the Kenya chapter, we are on our 9th year now. And the first formative years were basically, again, the few coaches who are there getting together, trying to bring like-minded people together so that they can have a common voice. Being a new profession in Africa, as I've said, you find that if you are there, if you are alone, you may not be able to walk very far in this sort of space. So the chapter came together to be able to bring a community of professional coaches together. Because remember, this is one profession where anybody can wake up any day and say, I am a coach. And that's it. And you needed people who are professional, people who have a certain level of training, sets of competencies, want to operate within a certain level of ethical standards, coming together so that they can be able to practice their coaching within that sort of context. And talking to one of the comments you made, Sam, about the importance of belonging to such a body is exactly because of the point I've said. Anybody can wake up, and indeed many people wake up and say, I am a coach. And they do a lot of damage to the image and the name of coaching, because it's just like any profession. There are many people who wake up and call themselves doctors, and they are quacks, and they do a lot of bad procedures on people, and they cause a lot of damage. It's not any different to the profession of coaching. There are many people who wake up and call themselves coaches. They do a lot of quacky business, and in an industry like ours, where there are not many barriers, then people need to differentiate within a community like ours in Kenya. We felt it was important for people to be able to differentiate between the quacks and the professionals. And ICF offered that opportunity as a body of professional coaches, bringing together many coaches, offering specific training, specific competencies, specific levels of accreditation, then that offered that level of standard that we needed in the market. So ICF, as you know, offers different levels of accreditation: ACC, PCC, MCC. And the Kenya chapter, from inception, we now have 137 members who belong to the chapter. And ICF in general in Africa has over 1,000 members spread across different countries. Your guess is as good as mine which country hosts the biggest number of those. And that is obviously Sam's country, because some in your country coaching came a little earlier than the other places. So South Africa, for the ICF membership, I think close to over 45% of the ICF members in Africa sit in South Africa. So in Kenya, we have 137 members. Africa, as I said, has 1,057 members spread across 29 countries. So you'll find some countries have one ICF coach, but plus other coaches from other different accrediting bodies. Now, it's important for coaches to belong to a community. And here in Kenya, having gone through those 9 years, ICF chapter is run by a board we have 7 board members, and we elect this board every year in November. One of the members we elect is a president-elect, who basically is a principal assistant to the president, serves under the president for 1 year, takes over from the president the subsequent year. So it helps in terms of succession planning, that we don't vote the president directly. We vote the president-elect, who serves under the president. And then after they serve for 1 more year as on an advisory role to the board. So we have a flow of leadership. And this board of directors then uses committees. We have 5 committees that help the board run the chapter. All these are volunteers, by the way. We have 5 committees that help the president run the activities. Now, what are some of the activities that the chapter engages in? One of the key activities is holding very regular education forums for members. Because it's a profession you must keep sharpening your skills. So every month we hold an education forum for our members where we tackle different competencies, different matters of interest, so that we can keep building the skill set of our coaches. The other thing that we do on a regular basis is just bringing this community of coaches together just to keep each other company. You need people especially during the COVID season, you needed people to keep coming together to be able to check on each other, to be able to support each other in terms of peer support, to network with each other, to even have some marketing opportunities amongst each other, and basically celebrate each other, support each other, and so on. So that sense of community, the chapter serves that space. The other thing that the chapter offers is strategic partnerships with within the industry, looking for market opportunities, partnering with different people where there could be significant pools of coaching clients, and then you can point the members towards that direction. So that's something that we do. We do have regular chat rooms that we offer for our coaches, where coaches basically log into a Zoom call, catch up with each other. During the lockdown, we were doing it very frequently every week, half an hour, checking on each other. How are you doing? What's on your mind, sort of thing. And as a chapter, we also engage with other international coaching federation activities like the International Coaching Week, the Converge, the Gift of Coaching, where we offer pro bono coaching. And within Africa, as a Kenya chapter, we are working very closely with some of the other chapters like the South African chapter, Nigeria, Uganda. And it is within this context, anyway, that we are ending up speaking, because I think the first interaction was when we had the International Coaching Week, and there was the Pan-African Initiative, and that's some of what the chapter is doing. So let me pause there, Sam, on who ICF Kenya is and what we are doing, and see if there is any points of interest that interests you and Mishti.
I'm wondering if Mishti can relate to some of the information that we have shared from the Indian perspective, because it does look like India also had the same type of approach in establishing ICF in India and many other federations as well. Mishti, just for the interest of our listeners, do you want to share with us the status and how it came about in India?
Yes, so India also has multiple chapters, and there are 6 ICF presidents, and there are a lot of activities that keep happening, like you shared, Dr. David. So there are regular webinars happening, there are chat rooms, marketing initiatives, and during COVID, in fact, in the Delhi chapter, there were regular meditations happening every evening because people were going through a lot of stress. So there was a lot of initiatives that were happening, and it's quite a close knit community. People support each other, and they really help each other. I think because they are from the profession of coaching, that's why it comes naturally. But yes, in fact, yesterday I was chatting with someone who's very active in the ICF Delhi chapter, and she was saying that we have multiple activities happening throughout. And I'm in discussion with the ICF Delhi president also. So if things go well, we'll be inviting him also on the show, Sam. pretty soon, so he'll bring in more perspectives. So yes, it's a close knit community, and there's a lot of work happening, and various chapters are very active in India as well.
Beautiful. So we will say that we might be talking about ICF Kenya and coaching in Africa, but the wonderful thing is that we belong to an international body and we can borrow lessons from each other. And I think that's really it makes one feel very good. But I get very motivated, even though it's a challenge, as David is talking about the few numbers of coaches we have across the continent, and that makes me to think about how do we eat this big elephant in terms of growing coaching in the continent, and that brings me to the aspect of regionalization. Do you want to share with us what is going on in the Eastern African region in general, David? And who is trying to bring the Eastern African countries together through coaching? And how has the experience been in the last 9 years?
Thank you, Sam. And your observation is very right that Africa is a huge market, and with only, from an ICF perspective, with only 1,000, just slightly over 1,000 members, there's a big challenge to grow that number. That's a very small proportion within the global space, and within the chapters that are existing, we keep challenging each other. How can we keep growing these numbers? Within East Africa, we had Kenya up to about 2 years ago, and we challenged our neighbors in Uganda to also work towards registering a chapter, and we supported and worked with them towards that goal. And we are very excited that Uganda registered their chapter and got it chartered about 2 years ago. They've grown their membership now to over 50 members. We are challenging Rwanda as well, which has got quite a number of coaches that have trained recently with the ICF accredited programs. And we are challenging them to come together as a community of coaches to also make the coaching a vibrant activity there. We have also had conversations with a few individuals with the other neighbor, Tanzania, again with the same challenge. How can we do this? So that's from an East African regional perspective. The other thing that Sam we've done is within the chapters that exist, the same way we've challenged ourselves with East Africa. We've said when you look down south, there are quite a number of coaches in Malawi, there are quite a number of coaches in Botswana. So within the southern side of Africa, South Africa has a huge pool of coaches, but the countries around there also have pockets of coaches. If you go to West Africa, Nigeria has a number of coaches there, 70 coaches, but the countries around there, Ghana and so forth, also have coaches who can be brought together, and they do initiatives together. Now we have, as a continent, said let's do many more continent initiatives. We've got a committee that is helping us think through that, drawn with members drawn from Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, and South Africa, of ICF members, volunteers to think through that and say, how can we get our people to work more closely so that we can grow that number? Because with 1,000 members, that journey may take, because we'll be speaking a little bit about how we spotlight coaching in Africa. How do we then make sure that we've got many more coaches who can be able to do the challenge that we have?
Are you in touch with the head office to get some more support? Because I think there's an Europe, Middle East, Africa direct route at the ICF head office. I'm sure they'll be very interested, and I'm sure they will bring more network of support.
Absolutely. We are working very closely with Africa fits in within the Europe, Middle East, and Africa region. And we've got a business development manager responsible for that region, who is actually one of our members of ICF Kenya. So we are working closely with the regional office and the global body to support, to see how we can support the growth of coaching in Africa in a more concentrated, in a more concerted effort. And the regional office has been very supportive. The global office has been very supportive, which is why, like, even the initiative that actually got us connected was very well supported by the global entity, by the regional entity. And even this conversation we are having today, the regional office is aware, the regional office is supportive, and I know there are quite a number of our members who are listening on this call as well.
Wow. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. I think we need to go as far as being intentional about getting one of us sitting on the board, because every year there is invitation across the globe for people to make themselves available to serve at the ICF board, at either foundation or the main board. It sounds contesting, but it's not really about that. It's I remember some years serving on an international body on worldwide mobility, and it was quite painful when we were in London and we looked into Africa, and I realized that there was just nobody. And it doesn't mean that people are not there. It's just because we are not pushing outward to be heard. And I think maybe there should be a standing agenda item by all the chapters.
Fortunately, some for Africa within the ICF, you'll be glad to know that we've got quite a number of people from Africa who sit within the global. We actually have one of the global board members from Africa. She's Kenyan. We have a seat on the foundation, actually from the South Africa. You know, Dumi sits on the. Dumi is one of your members down there in South Africa. He sits on the ICF board. Foundation board, and we've got quite a number of the members from across Africa who sit in several committees at the global level. So Africa within the ICF, I would say, is making some very good showing in that space. And that helps in making the push and the voice known in a way that helps make the context real.
Do you see the regional thinking becoming almost like a way we're organizing ourselves, or you rather see countries, chapters being the direct link? I know it's not your decision, but I'm just saying, what is your thinking there?
My thinking is that, and this is even beyond the coaching world, Africa. My challenge to Africa is to stop thinking in small pockets, because Africa needs to approach her issues as one big ecosystem. This is the second largest continent in the world, 30 million square kilometers, but playing a very insignificant role in terms of the global economy. This is a continent with the second highest population as a continent, just behind Asia. Over 1.37 billion people sitting within this continent. That's a huge opportunity. But when you fragment them, it doesn't make a lot of sense. If you think about it, if you take the population of Africa, it is actually much higher than combined Europe and North America. Now that's a huge, huge, huge space. Now this is a population which is the youngest population globally. 60% of the people in this continent are below 25 years. The median age on this continent is about 20 years. Now, if you compare that with Europe and North America, Europe, the median age is about 43 years. North America is about 39 years. So we are sitting on a gold mine, and which is why I said this topic is very exciting for me, because coaching, we create awareness of people within the potential they sit on as individuals. If you think as Africa as an individual, because she's actually a big individual. The opportunities sitting here, I couldn't agree with you more, Sam, that we don't have enough coaches to create that awareness that this is a continent, these are clients sitting on a gold mine. 1.3 billion human beings who are very young, energetic, very easily influenced towards a positive side. They are actually the fastest growing population in the world, growing at about 2.5% every year. Now, if you compare that with Europe, which is growing at 0.06%, actually stagnant, or America, which is growing at 0.6%, then you realize that Africa needs coaching and does need coaching very urgently, as a matter of extreme urgency. So as she realizes that she has got much more potential and she's playing way below her league. Now, who is going to do that? It is these coaches in Africa, because Africa needs an African solution. So back to your question, do we approach it as fragmented chapters, or do we approach it communally? Actually, I say that coaches in Africa needs to approach this as coaches, African coaches. And those fragmentations need to be something that we don't entertain, because this opportunity is so huge that we need anybody who is a professional coach in Africa today needs to be working towards the same common objective, because Africa is a huge opportunity, but we are wasting this huge opportunity. Now, as you waste this huge opportunity, obviously, nature does not like seeing opportunities being wasted. Somebody somewhere is going to take advantage of that.
Coming to that point, and this is quite very interesting. Let's talk the business of coaching. We go where our clients are, which invariably as executive coaches, we follow businesses. Now, the whole world sees Africa as a business, as a new frontier in terms of business. Let's talk about collaboration across business. How do we support each other in tackling the market and the demand that is coming from all these angles? I know we have been focusing very much on the organic side of it in terms of the structure of the ICF, but ICF is actually there saving us. We actually should be sending messages to ICF that we are growing commercially as coaches. We need you to support us as your members. So now the question is, this collaboration, should it start at the level of belonging to a body, or should it start at Coach David and Coach Mishti and Coach Sam, realizing that they are in business of coaching and they need to collaborate, share the opportunities, support each other's capacity, make an impact? I think sometimes we tend to talk very much around as if we are NGO or a political party. We're forgetting that we are actually in business. What is the model? Where is the business? Which companies must we be talking to in Africa? Where are they? To say we are here, we can support you with your talent development. We are not here to ask for handouts. We are not here to only volunteer. Our primary business, number one, is to assist you in developing and growing your talent. How do we change that thinking? Because otherwise the market will be eating in front of us. Not that we don't want foreign coaches into Africa. We want them to come in and grow us together. But at the end of the day, we are in business.
Yeah, you're very right. And that's a very deep question, Sam, that we are in business and the whole world is in business. And every business person wants to grow their pie, their piece of the pie. And that's a good thing to do, because as we do that, we elevate each other, we elevate the world up. So competitiveness is a good thing. Now for Africa, unfortunately, she's not in that competitive space. And this is why I see coaching coming in, because, as I said, coaching helps people get the awareness. Now, we are just starting to paint the picture of Africa and the sort of opportunities and the businesses that is sitting there. Coaches, I want us to challenge ourselves, especially the ones in Africa. I want to challenge our mindset from and scale ourselves to an abundance sort of mindset. Not a scarcity mindset, but abundance. Because there is actually much more than all of us combined. We cannot handle the scope of opportunity that is there in Africa, as we've rightly said. Why do I say so? We sometimes, as coaches, want to play too safe and stay behind the scenes too much. And Africa in particular, we cannot afford to do that as coaches. We have a moral obligation to bring the right level of awareness that there's something not right happening, because you cannot have the second largest continent, as I've explained, the sort of population dynamics I said. You cannot have the continent with the richest in terms of natural resources, the oil, the human capital, the diamonds, the gold, the what, the agricultural land and everything, yet have the same continent hosting among the poorest populations in the world. There's obviously something very wrong with that statement. And people who are, the right people need to be consciously aware of that sort of disparity. Now, who will bring that awareness? Coaching must bring that awareness, which is why I'm saying, coaches, you cannot sit behind and expect the political elite to be the ones to do that. The political elite will not do that. Now, coming to the question of how do we plug ourselves and make business commercial sense out of this opportunity? As you rightly say, everybody is seeing the business opportunity in Africa. Everybody. When I say everybody, people out there see the rich resources in Africa. And as I said, I'm not, political space is not my space. But Africa has been a very good source of raw materials and labor to fund growth in other places. Now, Africa coaches, we need to create the awareness that that's not right. The time when Africans' resources need to benefit the Africans, just like any other continent, the primary resources need to benefit the people is now. And as I've said, the political elite are not going to do that for various reasons. The corporate people need to spearhead that. Coaches need to create that awareness within the different, one advantage is that we coach across sectors. We coach public sector, we coach private sector, we coach NGOs, we coach churches, we coach opinion leaders, we coach SMEs, everybody. So we must challenge ourselves that if this opportunity for Africa, the midwives, we need to change the midwife. The midwife has been the political elite. Coaches need to midwife that process. And there is no better time for coaches to do that than now.
Absolutely,
Wonderful.
absolutely.
Wonderful.
Mishti,
Yes.
must be, yes, this must be music in your ears because
Yes, it's
working,
all yours. I'm all yours.
yeah, working with ODA. I mean, I'm sure that is exactly the type of issues that
Yes.
organizations like ODA want to see themselves thriving in such populous continents like Africa and India. Maybe for the benefit of our clients, because you host this show with me every month. I think it's very important for people to know what drives you to be interested and what drives ODA to be interested in conversations like this. I mean, this.
By the way, Sam, let me interject before Mishti comes in. Actually,
Mm,
everything I've said about Africa, you can actually remove that Africa and put India there, and that will apply. That there's huge
Yes.
opportunities in India. There's
Mhm.
huge disparity in India. You still see quite some poor areas within India. There's rich resources. Now, the coaching community in India needs to create that awareness that this is not right.
Mhm.
This is not this. There's something wrong here. Is it the
mm,
political elite who will do so in India? No. Somebody else needs to midwife that conversation. Who is the most appropriate person? The person who will ask the tough questions uh, without obviously endangering themselves, because the political elite can be quite risky if you are not wise. But somebody needs to have that conversation that says, no, this is not right. And the coach is having their footprints in all these sectors.
yes,
So, Mishti, now you can go ahead. Sorry about that interjection.
beautiful.
That was a beautiful interjection, Dr. David. And when you speak about abundance and mining that abundance of opportunity and moving the needle from disparity to opportunity, it is a very powerful statement. And yes, you can replicate the same concept to India as well. But there is a lot happening in India. And I would first want to answer Sam's question with your permission and then move on to some discussions around that. So, Sam, what motivates me to do the show with you and co create this space is, of course, two things. One is my passion for cross cultural diversity. So, I am very passionate about engaging with people from different cultures and creating I keep repeating this, Sam, but with your permission, I'm going to say this again. Creating a Ubuntu bridge, a bridge that is beyond differences, but it connects at the level of empathy, it connects at the level of passion, it connects at the level of collaboration, and it connects at the level of opportunity as well, because we support each other and create spaces for opportunity and abundance. So that is one area that I'm very passionate about, is connecting across cultures and uh, breaking virtual barriers and strengthening bridges. The other aspect from an ODA perspective is that ODA, like I said, our chairman was instrumental in pioneering coaching in India. So he even authored several books on coaching. So ODA is always motivated to contribute in the coaching space. So that is where ODA's motivation comes from. And of course, we are, as an organization and individually, we want to strengthen the connection and relationship between the two countries and be, I would say, a connector and a bridge to do that. Because only when you're able to create bridges to support each other, you're able to mobilize and mine opportunities. Otherwise, individually, you cannot do much. It's all about, that's why you have organizations like ICF, or you have different federations creating a gamut framework that not only supports coaches but also helps them navigate their career journeys towards abundance and opportunities. So in India, the coaches focus a lot on personal branding. So they're very active on social media. They keep making videos. They keep writing articles. Post COVID, organizations are hiring a lot of coaches because of the stress and anxiety levels that employees are going through. There are a lot of conversations at the HR level that's happening around well-being and wellness. So a lot of opportunities for coaches there. I don't know how it is in Africa, but right now the corporate diaspora in India, they are hiring a lot of coaches at an organization level to take care of employee well-being and their issues. So there's a lot of work happening. The coaches who are MCC and so on, and even executive coaches are doing a lot of work. The struggle, however, which is also my next question, which I wanted to ask you, Dr. David, is with the younger coaches, who have just set foot into the world of coaching. So, how do they really market themselves? How do they really mine those opportunities? Because there is a lot of opportunity out there, but you need those uh, those networks, or you need those connects in the corporate space, or whatever your target audience may be. So, does ICF in Africa support that, handhold some of these new coaches? What's the process there?
Just before David can come in, Mishti, we're getting feedback from you. I don't know whether it's your earphones or something that is causing that feedback. Yeah, you are muted now. You are muted, Mishti.
Just going to correct that. So, are you able to hear me clearly now?
Yeah, and I say we're getting some feedback from you. I don't know what causes it, but we got your question. David can respond to that.
Were you able to hear me clearly? Was
Yes,
my
now
question clear?
we got
Yes,
all the points. But
yes,
just
yes.
mute yourself for now, it's fine.
Yes.
Thank you, Mishti, for that question. And it's real that when you just graduate from coaching school, you are full of energy and excitement. You want to go and coach anybody and everybody. But as you say, the opportunities, the clients want the experienced coaches, they want trusted hands. And the question was, what mechanism have we offered? I'll tell you what we've endeavored to do here in Kenya. I spoke about strategic partnerships as one way that we try to help our coaches. A lot of that would speak to that point, because we realize if they may not know where to plug in, where to go and knock doors so that they can get those coaching opportunities. And as you rightly say, there's a lot of people who want their people coached, a lot of organizations who want their people coached. So the strategic partnerships, we get into conversations with the entities so that we can offer them profiles of our members. Again, organizations are stratified in various levels. There are some big organizations which will obviously want to work with well-established credentialed coaches, but there are many SMEs who will be okay to work with that sort of profile of the person who is gaining the experience, because the SME may not want to spend as much money or may not afford as much money as the bigger corporate would afford, because the more experienced coaches will obviously be more expensive, so the SME may not afford. So there's a meeting point where the smaller SMEs will be able to find coaches from our pool, and the coaches who are building their profiles then will be able to plug into that. So it's something we are trying to aggressively keep building on, so that, as you rightly say, we don't leave people behind, because we need the coaches to practice so that they gain experience, so that they can be able to help work with the big demand that is there. So yes, I do agree the bodies can play a part in helping the younger coaches get levels of practice. The other thing that we do is also look for pro bono experiences, opportunities where you can build your skill sets. Because for you to be able to build, coaching is a skill. You need to practice. It's like riding a bicycle. You cannot become a perfect bicycle rider by reading about it too much. You got to get out there and ride, fall a few times. Same with coaching. You've got to coach real human beings, make a few blunders here and there, and then learn as you go along.
Absolutely. And that is always the biggest challenge for fresh graduates, that once you finish your studies, you need to get the opportunity to coach, but it's existing coaches and organizations that must give you that opportunity. And again, the other point, David, that I think is very important is we assume all the time, in many cases, that our clients understand what we are about. And we do a very little educational work to empower the buyers of coaching and the clients of coaching. And I think, and that is where platforms like this also become very, very helpful. If we as pro coaches do not grow our profession, we do not grow our industry by educating the potential clients. If you think of it, if I could find somebody who wants to be coached, but that person might not be the person that's going to buy the coaching services. The company is going to buy the coaching service. Now the company must understand what we are all about. And I think that for me is a missing link. And you are rightfully saying so that we are very much in the background. And we are not selling what we are about. And of course, our selling is a very ethical way of selling, in the sense that we are in the helping profession. We don't just coach for the sake of money. And that is, I think, another dilemma that we find ourselves in now. I think the starting point, and this is the next question I'm going to ask you, who are the real powerhouse companies in Kenya that you can strategically partner with so that they give coaching job to your 137 members?
Good question. And one body which we have partnered with is the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. As there's a private sector alliance that brings members of business with the business community from all sectors come under the umbrella of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. And it's one of the bodies that we've pursued an alliance with, a memorandum of understanding with, that we can be able to offer to our coaches and say, if you are a member of Kenya Private Sector Alliance, there's a framework with which you can engage with members of the coaching community. Now, Kenya Private Sector Alliance brings together various, a whole spectrum of members. Some big corporate entities, banking institutions, which obviously have got their own solid mechanisms of how they coach and support their team leaders. But within the same space, you've got other small players, the medium enterprises, who have no way of building a coaching capability internally. So that is one very strategic alliance that we've gotten into. We also have an alliance with an organization, Invest in Africa, and this is actually Pan-Africa. We established the relationship here, but Invest in Africa brings together SMEs from across the African continent. They've got outfits in West Africa, in East Africa, across the continent. So that partnership, again, should be able to bring that community of business players into contact with the professional coaches who can then be able to tap into that service. And we need to get much more of those arrangements across the continent so that the small business players can be able to see, to be able to blow up their scale of imagination so that they see the huge opportunities that exist. And they see that your small enterprise doesn't need to remain small for long. It needs to start playing beyond the small locus center where it's playing to play within the national economy, play within the regional economy, play within the continental and global economy. Because as I rightly challenged ourselves, Africa, we have a huge opportunity to be a significant player in the global economy. Now, that's not going to happen on its own. The good thing is that a lot of thought process has gone into that. Africa Vision 2063, Africa 2063 is already a vision that is already so well crafted. But as I said, conceptualization has been done. The idea was conceptualized, but the midwife who is going to deliver Vision 2063, Africa 2063, is not the political elite. The coaches must play a significant role in doing that. So every coach in Africa, my own prescription needs to be very conversant with Africa 2063. So that as we challenge and support our clients, we are working within a very strategic context. We must be very conversant with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So that as we coach our clients, as we coach that small business enterprise in the small town in Malawi, in Kenya, in wherever, we have the global view that this continent, as we say, doesn't need to work in small pockets. It doesn't need to work in small fragmented areas. And even me as a coach in Nairobi, I cannot work in isolation, which is why when you reached out, my default answer was yes, let's have the conversation. Because we need to have these conversations across the continent. And indeed, globally, coaches must play their part to make sure that you influence. When you scale up now, the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, we must plug into them to make sure that as a continent, we are making sure that this world, we bequeath it to the next generation. So coaches have a very strategic role to play, but they must do so strategically. Africa, we cannot be playing coaching outside Africa 2063, outside the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. We must be very conversant and breathe life into those strategic initiatives.
Now we have drummed the idea of we need more coaches. There's a lot of work to be done. Now, I am Sam Tsima. I'm inspired by what I hear. I'm sitting in Nairobi. I want to start tomorrow. Where do I go for training? Which institutions offer training in coaching in Kenya? Are they there? Or do I have to go to London like you did?
Fortunately, in Kenya, we have very several coach training institutions, fully accredited by ICF. And the good thing with ICF is that because they are accredited training institutions, any person who wants to train as a coach, the place I tell them to go is go to the ICF website, the International Coaching Federation website. Look for an institution that is accredited, because there are others who are not accredited. Those in Kenya, you'll find those that are accredited. I don't market for any of them, because as the president of the chapter, I have no affiliation to any of the coach training schools in terms of go to this one and not this one. No, that's a client to make that decision. But within the ICF website, if you go and look for accredited coach training schools in Kenya, you will get a list of names. If you want to get the coach accredited training schools in South Africa, you'll get that. In India, you'll get that. So that's the default place I send people to. But please don't just go for any training that may not give you the right skill, because just like coaches, they are quacks. There are also quack training schools which don't give you the full competencies. So look for somebody who has who has the right level of accreditation, the right level of professionalism, and there are several bodies across. Just look for what aligns to you and what aligns to your market.
Absolutely. I also wanted to ask Dr. David that beyond ICF, are there any other accreditation bodies? Like, do you have EMCC also there? Is there in Europe? Is there in India? Do you have Gallup there as well? So, in Africa, how is it? Just some perspectives around there.
ICF is actually, well, let me speak about Kenya. ICF is actually the biggest here. It's much more widely recognized. So it is the active one which people, even the market, resonates with here. I'm aware that obviously the EMCC, there'll be some places where that will be what people will resonate with, or any of the other professional bodies. But it's good to make sure that it is a well accepted professional body within the market in which you are operating. So for Kenya in particular, ICF is what is more widely recognized as a professional body.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's a very good follow-up question, Mishti, because there are a number of many other effective federations that, by the way, actually are in alliance with ICF. I think the whole coaching community is starting to realize that the work is so much, and I think the choices must be bigger. And you're seeing more and more business school and universities are starting to offer coaching. And they've also woken up to realize that they can't just be independent institutions offering coaching, because once you qualify, the next thing now is the whole process of being recognized or credentialed. And if you are the school or the university you come from is not recognized by ICF, you might battle to become part of the coaching ecosystem and coaching fraternity. So it's something that we have to keep in mind, that the coaching federations themselves are actually gravitating towards becoming collaborators. So it's a good thing to do.
Absolutely, Sam. That's a very valid point. In fact, I was telling you that when you do a Gallup certification, you get certain hours from ICF as well. So they are all aligned, and it's very important for that alignment to be there, because to get the right skills and competencies is very important. So there has to be a coalition working together. So that is very important. I have a few more questions, but I would first ask you, Sam, is there something brewing that you're warmed up to ask right
Yes,
now? Yeah.
I have two things I need to ask David.
Okay. Okay.
One
Okay.
is I think we've spoken a lot as commercial people, and we have one area I want us to address, and I really would love to see more and more coaches going into the public sector space, more in government space, because we are needed there. I mean, not everybody in government is a politician. There's a lot of government civil servants who are in leadership positions that really could benefit a lot from. Here in South Africa, I see more and more state departments and state organizations, when they are asking for coaches, they will always say that you must be a member of either COMETSA or ICF. For me, that's the first achievement, because now the market start to realize that don't just grab any coach that you come across, because we are ethically obliged to do things the right way. And how is it in Kenya? Are you having conversations with government organizations? I know NGOs and churches, probably you have among your members people there, but I think we need to be very intentional that we are going to move Africa, and we're going to have our space only if the political elite also realizes that we have a space, a role to play.
Thank you for that wonderful question, Sam. Because governments are the biggest buyers of anything. If you are selling anything, the government is normally the biggest market. And hence the same for coaching. But in Kenya and in Africa, they've not been the highest takers of coaching. Yet they are the biggest. They need it a lot. In Kenya, in particular, a lot of our work has been within the private sector space. Increasingly, we have felt the need to engage with the government. The government's processes are normally not as fast as within the private sector. So even getting to the engagement takes time. But we are hopeful that increasingly we will continue to create the excitement even within the public sector here in Kenya. Having said that, let me speak in a different capacity that I engage in. I did say that I engage in different capacities within the coaching world in Africa. One of those capacities, I am a facilitator with the Breakfast Club Africa organization, BCA. And BCA, in a nutshell, is an organization that supports business leaders and leaders in general to be intentional about growth and development of their leadership capability, and coaching is a very instrumental part of that process, and we offer that. We have for a long time operated with the private sector, but last year, as BCA, we started deliberately targeting the public sector. And as we did that, we felt there was even a need to be more strategic around it. So this year, we launched an initiative that is very targeted to the public sector. It's actually called Make Africa Work for Africans, MAWA. And if you go to the BCA website, you will find that initiative. And we are targeting the public sector and saying, how can we get the public sector to be much more involved in the conversation we are having? And why is that important? Remember, I spoke about us being aligned strategically to Vision 2063. This is a space where everybody needs to come in, the leaders within the public sector space. If Africa 2063 has to be realized, this is a space which needs to come in. So as BCA, we realize that's an opportunity that we need to tap into. And that statement applies to every coach within Africa. We cannot ignore the public sector. So the Make Africa Work for Africans is an initiative that specifically targeted the leaders within the the public sector. And as BCA, we've seen traction there. We do have annual leadership conferences, and we've seen public participation, especially within the economies where we are seeing much more progressiveness towards the sort of Africa we are desiring to seeing. We are seeing quite a lot of traction within those economies wanting to be part of that conversation.
Wow. I've seen a number of their adverts on LinkedIn, and I will make note when the events happen and hopefully join you there. Mishti, you wanted to have some few remaining questions addressed?
Yes. I actually wanted to move the needle towards another area, but around coaching itself. I'm very passionate about working with women leadership and gender sensitization, and I've been working in that space extensively, even around coaching women leaders or mentoring women leaders. So I was very curious to know, what is the gender representation there in Africa when it comes to coaching? And also from the leadership perspective, how's the gender representation, women leadership representation? If you could throw some light on both these aspects, it'd be wonderful.
Okay, good question. And The questions, I mean, the answer to that question will vary from geography to geography across Africa. As we said, Africa is so diverse.
Yes.
If you go to some of the countries, and here I have countries like Rwanda in mind, you'll find even at the national level, political leadership level, you'll find very equitable distribution of opportunities, leadership opportunities between both male and female. But you find in some other places where in terms of leadership opportunities, that disparity is still there. So that's quite diverse. But there is increasingly conscious effort towards making the playing field level. You've got much more inclusivity of women in leadership, the youth in leadership. As I said, the population of Africa is so young that when you look at diversity, if you ignore the youth, then you are not creating the Africa that will be sustainable. So there's a lot of now increasingly youth involvement in the progressive economies. As I said, some of them are different points in time. Youth, women, persons with who are differently abled, all that diversity is now very being deliberately spoken about. When I spoke about Africa 2063, one of the characteristics of that, the Africa we want to create by 2063, is an Africa that is well diversified in terms of the players within that space. So a people-driven, where there is potential group is being involved in that economy. Now, within the coaching side, what I see is we have a huge proportion of women coaches as opposed when you compare with men coaches. I don't know that that's the same in South Africa, but here a good proportion is biased on the ladies. So on the coaching side, that's the bias.
Yeah, it is the case in South Africa as well. And I often become very intentional when I encourage people to consider coaching, that I say we need men coaches because certain context may just require a male coaches. But we need to reach that balance because clients must have a bigger choice. If the clients have a choice to be coached by men, they must do so. If the choice to be coached by a woman, they must do so. I work a lot with associate coaches in my business model. I don't coach alone. And I always say that more diversity of coaches, the better for us in making propositions to clients. I think thanks very much for that question, Mishti. When it comes to gender issues, it's very important in the continent. Can we look at wrapping up? We have 15 minutes to go. If we could just look at what we think we have confirmed with these conversations and what are we taking home? Is there anything that we want to do differently as a result of our conversations? Maybe starting with you, David. And then if you don't mind, also give your contact details of the chapter and your own self, how people get hold of you so that they can do proper follow-up.
Okay. One of the things which I wanted, it's a question you had asked earlier, which I've just thought of something that I need to add there. We spoke about the collaboration across the continent and indeed globally. As coaches, we are in a space where the opportunity to collaborate is huge. In Africa, we've got organizations who have feet in several countries. Those are opportunities where if you have people who need to be coached in East Africa, or I have people who need to be coached in South Africa, then we should be able to collaborate and get yourself or somebody down there doing that without having anybody to hop into a plane, even before COVID, and do that. When we do embrace an abundance mentality, then we have the opportunity to be able to scale this huge opportunity together in a more collaborated way. I think for me, I want my closing remarks. I want to just reiterate some of the things I said, that for Africa, considering the topic was spotlighting coaching in Africa, there is huge opportunity. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Crafters of Agenda 2063 have defined for us the sort of Africa that we want. But I want to leave the coaches on the call with some few reflective questions, 4 questions to reflect on, which as coaches we carry within our coaching conversations in Africa. And the first question I want us to ask ourselves as coaches is, how will Africa, considering all our immense natural resources, stop being home to some of the poorest communities in the world? Now is a question we need to ask ourselves as we coach the different people in the corporate sector, in the government sector, in the NGO world. The other question, which is closely related, is how will Africa, with all her rich agricultural land, stop losing people to starvation, malnutrition, because that is still happening in this day and age, despite having all these rich sources of food. Now, the other one, which as coaches we also need to think about as we interact with our clients, is how will Africa ensure that nobody in this day and age will take a crude weapon and smash their neighbor just because they speak a different language, or they have a different cultural dispensation, or they come from a different abstract boundary called this and not this, because those are abstract boundaries, whether it's South Africa, Botswana, Mauritius, wherever, Zimbabwe. How will Africa make sure that neighbors don't pick crude weapons and start smashing each other to death because of such differences? And the final thing that we need to ask ourselves as we engage with our clients is, how will Africa rise to the occasion and take a rightful position within the global ecosystem, having said all that we've said? Now, that is something as coaches we need to take a higher view and influence the different sectors that we interact with, the public, the private, the NGO, whoever leaders and communities, so that we can be able to do that. So my challenge to all of us on the call who are coaches is that beyond just the ordinary coaching our clients to reduce their cost income ratios, to increase productivity for their teams, how can we go beyond with having that need to address that disparity of a continent that is so huge, so endowed, but having so much poverty? Thank you, Sam.
Wow. Beautiful, beautiful, reflective questions. I've noted them down, and I'll continue asking those questions. Mishti?
Yes, I would just like to thank Dr. David for some very powerful insights. And, when we started the conversation, we picked up 2 threads on disparity and opportunities. And another thread that I would want to add to that is diversity. So, with the cultural diversity that is there, with the difference in opinions and culture and beliefs and so on, how do you bring in more inclusion? Is another question, powerful question of reflection. How do you really mine the opportunities? How do you reduce the scarcity mindset, and through one's approach, behavior, and identity, really bring in more abundance and support abundance? So these are some powerful thoughts you have you have suggested, you have empowered us with. And these are some of the thoughts that I would also want to reflect on. So thank you so much for your time.
Wow, thank you so much, colleagues. What a great conversation. And I'm sure the listeners have much to take home from our conversation. And I know it is not for the last time that we are having this conversation. We are continuing and we're contributing to that bigger mission of bringing coaching across the continent to working together and help the continent achieve its ideals packaged in those initiatives, Africa 2063 and Africa Continental Free Trade. And I'm seeing more and more forums are gearing and directing their discussions towards those type of initiatives, including millennial goals that we have always been talking about. So it's all about development. We are one profession that allows us, we are in a profession that allows us to make money while we are also changing the status quo of our societies. We are going to meet again next month, first Tuesday of the month. And this time round, we are having your sister, Joan Mugenzi from Uganda. ICF Uganda chapter will be our guest next month, first Tuesday of the month, same time, 1500 hours. You may want to join us there, David, if you want to show support to Joan. This is the forum that we want to continue like that. And then I've spoken to you that we are also talking to ICF Nigeria. We line them up for this September. I hope we are able to confirm that. And you promised me that you will talk to the coaches in Rwanda so that we can bring them in October. I think this is the continuation. And then, of course, we have from India some ICF presidents lined up. We'll see who we fit where, but it is a continuation. Mishti, you and I, we've taken the next level to say, let's talk to the presidents of this federation. Because when you talk to them, they are representing multitudes. And that way we are able to reach out to all those coaches. Thanks to our listeners, our viewers. We really enjoyed the conversation. And David, once more, we are privileged to have had you here. You have shared so much, and we can see the passion in you about this continent. I think the continent is in good hands when it comes to coaching. Thank you very much, and greetings to our friends down there in Kenya. We are watching, we are connected with them now on LinkedIn as a result of this initiative. We are one family, and of course, Mishti, as I always say, India is a continent on its own. You are in Mumbai. They are your colleagues in New Delhi, they are colleagues in many other parts of India, and we are proud of this relationship. And thanks to ODA to supporting you in mobilizing all these coaches. We are indebted to them for that. Thank you very much. You take be safe, and we'll see you next month. Take care.
Thank you, Sam and Mishti. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much, Dr. David. It's an absolute pleasure meeting you. Very inspiring indeed. I'm very grateful for your time and your thoughts and
Thank
the
you.
inspiration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.